Hi, so my name is Kendall Voorhees, and for my rights-based argument on abortion, I'm going to be arguing for abortion, and pretty much the basis of my argument is going to be that a woman's rights and her right to life and her health and well-being precede any presumed rights that the unborn fetus would have in the case of the woman receiving an abortion. And so the first thing I kind of want to go ahead and talk about is how people who themselves do argue against abortion often include the rare exceptions that include these very extreme circumstances such as rape or incest or these things that are universally known to be evil and impermissible. And so only in these scenarios would they grant permissibility to an abortion. And I think that it goes beyond that. I would like to argue that it does go beyond just these extreme circumstances. A woman does not have to go through these extreme circumstances in order to have the right to that abortion. And pretty much another thing that is often grouped in with these extreme circumstances is whether or not a woman's physical health is being put at immediate risk or potential long-term bodily harm due to a pregnancy. That is often included in the rare exceptions rule. However, I believe that things such as mental health or psychological health are often left out of the argument when talking about a woman's health and well-being. And so a woman who's already experiencing, whether or not it's diagnosed, mental or psychological distress, add on an unwanted pregnancy on top of that, that is going to drive even more emotional and mental distress on top of her. And things like this can lead to contemplations of self-harm and scenarios where a woman is not being granted the right to an abortion in these kind of situations. They can often try to terminate their own pregnancy through means of self-harm. And again, a woman comes first. This is not a scenario of a fetus needing to be protected from an evil mother who is trying to terminate it. This is a woman who is severely ill and needs to be protected in order to be, she needs to be safe and cared for. And so it would be unjust for a woman in this circumstance to be forced to continue on that pregnancy. She should be granted the right to an abortion because her rights and her health are at stake in this scenario, even if it's against herself. And the next thing I kind of want to talk about is whether or not abortion is infanticide. And so, excuse me, the key point I kind of want to refer back to here is the self-consciousness requirement. And this pretty much just states that in order for a being to have the right to life, they have to be able to have a concept of self, and they have to be able to see themselves as a continuing entity going through experiences and responding to stimuli around them. And so for a fetus, things like this doesn't really happen until about 24 to 28 weeks, which is kind of known as the viability point in pregnancy. And this is when a fetus goes from having, not having these responses to stimuli to feasibly being able to potentially live outside of the womb and, be an infant, be born. And so pretty much this viability point is, in the United States, it is not legal to get an abortion past this point unless in extreme circumstances. And so already abortions that are legal are being performed before this point, before a fetus has the right to life, before they've reached this right to life standpoint. And so therefore abortion is not infanticide because no right to life is being violated. And the last thing I kind of want to go ahead and argue about is the contraceptives argument, which is often made by people who are against abortion. And this pretty much goes as a woman who is consenting to a sexual activity knows the risk that that she can become pregnant by engaging in this activity. And therefore, she should not be granted the right to an abortion because she knew that there's that risk there. However, it is of my belief that no matter whether or not a woman is using contraceptives or choosing not to use contraceptives or using a multitude of them before engaging in a sexual activity, that woman simply consented to participating in a sexual act. She did not consent to becoming pregnant. So that's where her rights and the infringement of her rights, the violation of her rights, comes into play. Just because she consented to that sexual activity does not mean that she consented to a pregnancy. Therefore, it's a violation of her rights in order to force her to continue to carry on this pregnancy all the way to term. And so yeah, that's pretty much the full basis of my argument, is that a woman's rights comes first before that of the unborn fetus who does not have the right to life in cases of abortion.